Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Finding an opportunity to create something new for our school system.
What does Eleanor Sturko's switch to the BC Conservatives mean for the SOGI resource in BC schools, given her new leader's stance?
The material that's being made available to students in schools can't even be read or said in the legislature. You couldn't put it on television programs.
There's a distortion here of what we actually do in our schools.
Plus, spare a penny for a pier?
Yeah, that's a very good idea.
I think they should pay for it, but I like the upkeep of natural things.
Visitors to White Rock's iconic landmark are being asked to make a donation for its repair. And
you come to Grey Cup, Canadians from all walks of life come.
We talk Canadian football, fans, and a big BC Grey Cup halftime show with the commissioner of the CFL.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. Since it began in 2016, the province's SOGI resource for BC schools has been the focus of plenty of criticism and protest. SOGI stands for Sexual Orientation and Gender Identity. As Belle Puri explains, it's again top of mind after BC's latest political defection to the BC Conservatives.
Eleanor Sturko's jump to John Rustad's Conservatives has certainly raised questions. Topping the list, perhaps, what it means for the future of the heavily debated sexual orientation and gender identity resources in BC schools.
Finding an opportunity to create something new for our school system that respects legally enshrined rights and rebuilds the trust and finally puts this division to bed, I think is a wonderful thing to do.
SOGI 123 is a resource, not a curriculum. It was introduced 8 years ago by the BC Liberals, Sturko's former party, now called BC United. The current NDP government supports the resources. The BC Conservatives, not so much.
The material that's being made available to students in schools can't even be read or said in the legislature. You couldn't put it on television programs because it's pornography. This sort of stuff has to go out of our schools.
Rustad says his newest team member is in favor of changes to SOGI 123.
There's a distortion here of what we actually do in our schools.
SOGI is the guide to addressing discrimination and bullying in an inclusive environment for LGBTQ students.
In no way, shape, or form is any teacher speaking about pornography in classrooms or showing students pornography.
The use of SOGI material is not mandated, but can be incorporated into any subject.
We include information and education on people of different religious backgrounds, people of different racial and cultural backgrounds, and we need to include people with the SOGI education as well.
As a Liberal, Sturko was a very vocal member of LGBTQ issues. Just last October, on his first day in the House as BC Conservative leader, the Premier lambasted Rustad over his party's SOGI platform. Sturko led the 32-second-long standing ovation in support of David Eby's comments.
No, I've not abandoned the LGBTQ plus community. I'm part of it. I'm going to say this, that in a big tent, there's room for everybody.
Belle Puri, CBC News, Vancouver.
A BC couple is now speaking out after Air Canada took them to court. The airline is fighting an order to pay compensation for a delayed flight. And as Sophia Harris explains, experts say this is only the beginning.
Following a 24-hour flight delay to Costa Rica, Andrew and Anna Ditchkowski were thrilled when a Canadian Transportation Agency officer determined Air Canada was to blame and must pay the couple $2,000 compensation.
We were kind of happy that the system works.
Yeah. But instead of getting their cash, Air Canada is taking the couple to court to try to overturn the officer's ruling.
We're numb. Leave us little folks alone. Like we really don't want to be in this business of courts. Something is really wrong, in the system.
Airlines have always had the right to appeal CTA decisions on air passenger complaints. However, it's been rare.
Any appeal the airlines wanted to bring up would have to allege an error of law, which is a big high standard to meet.
But now that's changed. The CTA adopted new rules late last year to streamline the complaints process. One result, airlines can now legally challenge a broader range of CTA decisions. So some experts worry carriers may try to clog the courts with cases.
It's really unfortunate. There's going to be a lot more of these, I think, to try to further gum up the process and make the complaints process look bad.
Air Canada refutes the prediction. In an email to CBC News, it said legal challenges are complex and costly and only pursued for serious matters of fact or law.
The new system is definitely working.
The CTA says the new streamlined system is cutting down its huge backlog of complaints. But if airlines launch lots of legal challenges, it will take action.
If we need to adjust, then certainly that's advice we would bring to the government.
That's little comfort for the Ditchkovskys.
It doesn't seem fair.
They did get one piece of good news. If Air Canada wins the court case, it says the couple won't be on the hook for legal fees. Sophia Harris, CBC News, Toronto.
It is going to cost a lot more to redevelop Richmond Hospital. The province now says the price tag is $1 billion higher since the business plan was developed in 2021. The total project cost is now close to $2 billion. BC's Health Ministry blames rising construction costs, among other things. The redevelopment will add 113 more hospital beds and improved medical care spaces, along with equipment. Metro Vancouver home sales have fallen nearly 20% in May, even as inventory continues to climb. The Greater Vancouver Realtors reports that the region recorded 2,707 home sales last month, lower than the April tally of just almost 4,000, I should say. The number was far lower compared to figures from May 2023, when, as you see, almost 3,400 homes were sold. It notes the benchmark price for all residential properties in Metro Vancouver is just over $1.2 million. That's 2.3% higher than last May. Search and rescue crews hope for a break in the weather tomorrow to help them in their search for 3 missing mountaineers in Garibaldi Provincial Park. The experienced trio was near Mount Atwell on Friday, and by that night, search and rescue teams had been called in. But challenging weather and a high avalanche risk has prevented them from reaching that area by air or on foot. The RCMP says weather models show a clearing trend tomorrow afternoon. They hope to make an aerial check before they send in any ground crews. Let's bring in Darius Madavia. First look at the weather and what are the chances they will get a break, the rescuers?
Fortunately, it does seem likely, especially later in the day tomorrow. It could come as early as the afternoon tomorrow, but it seems likely that as we get later and later into the day, it's going to be clearer and clearer. Now, the clouds don't seem to be loading in here, but it was very much low visibility conditions today. But as we get into tomorrow, that's expected to slowly clear up. You can see in this forecast model, as we get later in the day tomorrow especially, we're starting to see that cloud clear. By tomorrow mid-afternoon, there should be good enough conditions to go in, and as we get into the evening, even more clearing in that area around Mount Atwell. So better conditions coming tomorrow, but this is only going to be the first day of those clearer conditions, especially as we get days in the future. We're going to see even clearer conditions. So hopefully tomorrow will be the day when they are able to get out there, but if not, if the clouds don't clear up until later in the day, Thursday is looking completely clear in the area. So there is, fortunately, some opportunity there in the days ahead. In terms of the rest of the south coast, we're also seeing a clearing trend across the board. Some of that cloud will linger across the island, especially not so much in the lower mainland tomorrow, but then we see total clearing by Thursday, pretty much across the board and across much of the province, actually. Nothing but sunshine in the days ahead, really. So that's going to be the big weather story to come. And as you can see here, our forecast for here in Vancouver doesn't involve really any rain at all for most of us. On the North Shore, maybe the odd shower tonight, but really, it's going to be a sunny forecast in the days ahead, Dan.
Okay, Doris, we'll check in later. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
If you visit the White Rock Pier, you might notice a new sign asking you for help. This digital donation box at the entrance of the pier asks visitors to help restore White Rock Pier. It doesn't take cash, but you can tap a card instead. The city says it has repaired parts of the pier after it was torn apart in a brutal storm in 2018, but says it needs more money to complete the work. We asked some visitors what they think.
I would argue, yeah, tax dollars, parking money should go towards the parking funds.
I mean, I think they should pay for it, but I like the upkeep of natural things, so I think I would help out.
It's a fantastic idea. I don't see why people wouldn't want to contribute.
Yeah, that's a very good idea.
Would you donate?
Yes, well, I will. How much you want?
As we brace for wildfire season all over BC, wildfire officers are deep into their preparations. Some attack the flames from the sky. In the north, a smoke jumper operations base in Fort St. John walked us through their parachute checks. Check this out.
This location is the Northeast Smoke Jumper Base and also the Fort St. John Fire Zone. This is our parachute packing loft where all the rigging tables are. What's happening right now here is all those parachutes you see on those tables, those are main canopies that the jumpers are going out under. There's the fire gong. When that goes off, people will suit up. We talked about that earlier. But yeah, after the parachutes are deployed, they're required to be hung and shaken. We inspect them, do any sort of repairs or maintenance to them that's required before they go on the tables and are packed for operational purposes. This area here, this is our sewing room and manufacturing. Almost all of our equipment and all of our jump gear is manufactured and assembled here in Fort St. John by wildfire service staff, smoke jumpers specifically. We can't send our parachutes out for repair when they get a hole in them, stuff like that. So they get broken down, fully repaired, and put back into service here. So when we think of like the actual jump gear that we're talking about manufacturing, everything that you see here is something that we actually fabricate and build here on site or in service. So these jumpsuits are made out of ballistic Kevlar. It prevents the risk of spearing. So as jumpers may travel or enter like the forest, there's obviously a lot of sticks or branches that they could be impacted by. The spear resistance associated with the material reduces the risk to the jumper. So that's why we use that material, as well as it's also fire resistant up to like 600 degrees. And that closed cell foam acts as a life preserver if the jumper was to end up in a river. And these large collars that you see here, they're designed to go around the helmet to reach around it. This prevents any sort of like branches or something possibly to get up and under the helmet, you know, where you risk of once again spearing or puncturing. The different risers, the colors that we see on them is a large parachute and medium parachute, and the blue on the bottom is small. And it's basically associated with the jumper size and weight in order that they have a more consistent descent rate to the ground. So when the fire gong goes off, when they have a fire call, they come here, they rapidly suit up, and then they go and load in the aircraft, which is up here. So right now they do have a number of air tanker missions happening for a number of like local fires that are going. And so yeah, you can see them rolling from the air tanker base here. So this is the aircraft. This is one of our smoke jumper aircraft that we utilize. It currently doesn't have any equipment loaded on it. You can come on inside. Generally across this side of the aircraft, it's normally loaded with fire gear. We can see it in one of our like forklift pallets over there. It's fully loaded with gear, and then the jumpers are loaded in the seats that are adjacent to it. The gear's just not on the aircraft right now because we're in the process of doing recurrency jumps and seasonal certifications for new recruits. So it's kind of playing two roles, one for fire response as well as we're trying to get staff trained and ready to go for the fire season. So the fire hose that the crews are using, when it's in a melon roll, that's come off a fire. They've utilized it for fire operations. They stretch it all out, they dry it. If it's clean enough, they re-roll it. And you can see the roller there. They re-roll it, and then they put it in there, and then they repack it in bags so that it can refunction for the next fire it goes to.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has won a third 5-year term in office after a mammoth election. But as Salima Shivji reports, his victory was not the landslide many expected.
The drums ring out and the celebratory dances pour onto the street at the headquarters for India's ruling BJP. But this isn't exactly a win for Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
He did his best.
Modi was supposed to cruise to victory this election. which was dominated by polarizing religious rhetoric. Instead, India's voters sent a clear message.
Round 4.
As early results rolled in, the shock set in, with the count showing a surprising setback for Modi, the popular strongman, and his seemingly unbeatable BJP. Their majority now severely diminished. Modi will have to work with his coalition allies to govern. He may have claimed a decisive victory, saying this is a win for the world's largest democracy. But it was the opposition Congress Party and its headquarters that was more jubilant.
This was our last hope to save the democracy, to save the Constitution.
They far outperformed expectations. After cobbling together an alliance of opposition parties to try to stop Modi from winning a rare third term.
The country has unanimously and clearly stated, we do not want Mr. Narendra Modi.
The Congress, relegated to the political wilderness for Modi's decade-long rule, now given new life.
It's an election where the people in power have to be told that, well, you're okay, you're doing well, but this is where you need a bit of course correction.
Even some who voted for Modi are pleased with the result, tempering the power of the man who's ruled India with a strong hand for 10 years.
This opposition party has performed very well. Opposition should be there to fight.
It's not yet clear how Modi will operate under the diminished mandate that voters here have given him. But with such a slim majority for his alliance, he's now a much humbled prime minister. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Delhi.
Now, many in BC's large Indian diaspora are watching those results closely. Some wondering if and how a coalition government will impact strained relations between India and Canada. Michelle Gasuba is that part of the story.
The votes are still being counted, but news that Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi faced a stronger challenge from the opposition than expected is already sending ripples through India's diaspora community here.
So I think it's some evidence that there is enough of a pushback to ensure that they didn't get the supermajority they were expecting.
The religious discord that has happened between minorities and the majority Hindu religion is not the major focus. The major focus is probably poverty, getting rid of poverty, education, environment.
Many in BC's Sikh community have ties to Punjab, an area that largely voted for the opposition that challenged Modi. Without the supermajority his Hindu Nationalist Party was hoping for, he'll need to rely on coalition partners to govern.
And from there, you can see that it's going to shift a little bit.
This expert says that could temper some of the more polarizing rhetoric that has come to define India's political landscape in recent years.
It is sometimes better to have a coalition government because it constrains the government from more extremist views and policies. So it might have an impact on foreign policy too.
That includes India's relationship with Canada, which deteriorated following the murder of Sikh activist Hardeep Singh Nijjar here in BC, a killing that Canada's government says India had a hand in. While Indian citizens living abroad weren't eligible to vote in this behemoth of an election, they were heavily courted by Indian political parties.
I think more research needs to be done on the role of the diaspora and its effects on domestic politics and foreign policy here.
India's election was the world's largest democratic exercise, with some 640 million votes cast over 6 weeks. Michelle Gasuba, CBC News, Vancouver.
Coming up, the recent rise in BC's minimum wage is welcome news for many workers. But what does that mean for businesses? We're going to ask one small business owner in Prince George. Stick around. The minimum wage has gone up by 65 cents in BC, now to $17.40 an hour. What difference will it make? We spoke with employers and employees here in Vancouver to find out.
Reaction to the minimum wage going up is one is, how difficult it is already, for the restaurant business to survive. And it's basically based on the fact that it's not just minimum wage gone up, it's inflation, it's been the, cost of borrowing and all that. So it's a bit of a shock to the system.
It is really tough to live in Vancouver as a city if you're depending on this, and most people have 2 jobs, so I'm grateful that I can live at home, but it is a struggle always.
The cost of production on goods goes up, the shipping, rent every year is going up and stuff, so the margins keep getting lower and lower and lower. So, this is just another thing that takes a little bite out of your already thin profit margin being an independent business in downtown Vancouver.
I understand the means of living is harder because rent has to be paid, people have to pay for their families, take care of bills, but at the same time for business owners it's a lot harder because they also have to pay for their other needs and also the business, so it needs to have the 50-50 understanding.
So while the increase is a welcome raise for many workers, as we heard there are some businesses who might be feeling the squeeze, especially as inflation and other things make it more expensive to run a business. Joining us now is Owen Foley, who runs several restaurants in Prince George. Owen, thanks for joining us. What does a minimum wage increase like this mean for your businesses?
Well, it's a big shock, I guess, every year that we have to do this, and there's huge amount of things we have to go through to try to match that, to lower our costs. We try not to raise prices too much because obviously everybody's feeling the pinch. We want our customers to still feel they're getting value for their dollar at all times. But and we want our employees to thrive. We want them to have a comfortable life. But if the burden keeps on getting put on businesses over and over again, as we've seen, not just with minimum wage, with sick days, healthcare tax, increased costs on our food budgets as well. If we see more and more small businesses go under, there's those employees just lose their jobs, and that's no good for anybody.
How do you have those, or do you have those conversations with your staff, and how do they go? Because they're feeling the pinch of inflation when they have to buy groceries, rent's going up, and same as perhaps your taxes and other fees are going up as well.
Yeah, it's always a fine balance. My employees are incredibly valuable to the business. We can't operate without them, and they're so important. I'd rather see more money go into their pockets than going into costs, for general taxes, increased costs for food and alcohol, that sort of thing. But it can be difficult at times. I mean, certainly many of them were happy to get a bump in pay right now. So that's usually not as difficult of a question. But there are awkward conversations you might have to have, say, in the restaurant businesses around tips. If you opt to decide to shift a bit of the tips that come into the business from the servers to the cooks to kind of compensate for some of this increase in the minimum wage.
Do you do that? Do you cut back on the tips that employees get in order to deal with this?
Across the industry, we've been seeing this happen. None of it ever goes to
do you do that, though? I have to ask specifically.
We've done that slowly over a number of years.
How much
we don't
is it
want to
now?
shock that. The percentage of tips goes to the kitchen is about, for us, it's about 9% of the food sales, specifically. So it's tied to the work that the kitchen does. For every single restaurant, it's a bit different. 100 different restaurants have 100 different tip out schemes.
Yeah. And lastly, appreciate your time. You hinted at a few potential solutions. What would you like to see beyond perhaps lowering the tips that employees might get and that kind of thing, and along with trying to balance off your costs as well as theirs?
Yeah, well, any bit of help that the government can offer is welcome for small businesses, whether it's grants or tax relief. Another alternative, instead of putting increased burdens on us, maybe lessening the burden on lower income folks, such as like increasing the the level that the minimum level of tax deductions are, like it's sitting about $14,000 or $15,000
Right.
that you make tax free. If they were to increase that ceiling, that might help that, or just lessening the tax rate for lower income folks.
All right. Owen Foley, we really appreciate your time and your perspective. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Canadian MPs are facing questions after a report alleges some among them have helped foreign state actors meddle in politics in this country post-election. More details after the break. Canadian MPs are facing new questions about foreign interference after a new report suggests some MPs have conspired with foreign governments and shared sensitive information with them. As Rafi Boudjikanian tells us, no one is named in the report, which is raising its concerns about trust on Parliament Hill.
Justin Trudeau's cabinet has been preoccupied with foreign meddling for months, but typically they've not had to address their own caucus colleagues' potential involvement.
The allegations contained in the report are extremely serious. Anytime you have a suggestion that our democracy is being undermined, it has to be taken very seriously.
That's a concern for all of us, regardless of caucus, regardless of party.
That, as a new report by a committee of politicians with security clearance tasked with intelligence oversight says parliamentarians semi-wittingly or wittingly helped foreign states interfere into politics here, some accepting funds or benefits from foreign missions and their proxies, and providing privileged information to foreign diplomats, and in one case to a known foreign intelligence officer. The report also said China and India have interfered in conservative leadership races, providing no specifics.
We know that China and India are interfering in our democracy and are using members of parliament to do so. A Canadian is dead because India allegedly sent assassins to murder him in Surrey, BC. Yet, the Conservative leader refuses to condemn India's Modi, and the Prime Minister has failed to protect our democracy. How will this Prime Minister take this matter seriously and hold these foreign governments to account?
The very creation of the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians has allowed us to see a lot more and to make sure that all parliamentarians are aware of what the intelligence community is doing to keep Canadians safe. We will continue to do everything necessary to protect Canadians.
One opposition leader has an idea, saying every caucus should ask each of their MPs whether they may have been involved, even inadvertently, in foreign meddling.
I can only say that if we came to the conclusion that one member of my caucus would have been involved in such activities, he could not remain part of the caucus. That's clear.
The governing Liberals would not make that commitment on Tuesday, though Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland did say her party would be conducting an internal follow-up of some sort. For their part, the Conservatives say they never got any warning from Canada's spy agency CSIS about foreign interference into their last leadership contest. Rafi Boudjikanian on CBC News, Ottawa.
Canada's Auditor General released a new report today slamming the federal government for disregarding its own procurement rules. It found Ottawa awarded more than $200 million worth of contracts to one firm without much, if any, competition. More now from Olivia Stefanovich.
At least one contract.
Canada's Auditor General sounding the alarm over $200 million worth of federal contracts given to a single consulting firm, McKinsey & Company.
Federal contracting and procurement policies exist to ensure fairness and transparency and value for Canadians. But they only work if they are followed.
Karen Hogan found those rules routinely broken in 97 contracts awarded to the New York-based global management firm.
We also found that each organization's own practices often did not demonstrate value for money.
The contracts were handed out between 2011 and 2023 for a wide range of issues, including IT support, scientific research, even health and welfare services. Hogan's audit shows most of the contracts were not awarded through a competitive process, and 6 appear to have been designed to favor McKinsey specifically.
Will the Prime Minister commit here and now no more money for McKinsey?
The opposition is seizing on the Auditor General's scathing findings.
Why do these Liberals show such affection for McKinsey but such disdain for Canadian taxpayers?
When will they start respecting our public service and stop forking over money to rich consultants?
Will the Prime Minister finally ban McKinsey from government contracting?
This isn't the first time the government has come under fire for outsourcing.
Speed to procure.
Hogan recently scolded the government for the controversial ArriveCan app, concluding that its final cost impossible to determine due to poor financial record keeping.
We're committed to protecting the integrity of procurement and expect public servants and all departments to operate at the highest standard and prioritize value for money for Canadians.
So why didn't that happen with McKinsey? Well, the Auditor General says procurement policies may be too onerous as they are. So there's no need for more rules. She says the public service just needs to follow them. Olivia Stefanovic, CBC News, Ottawa.
South of the border, U.S. President Joe Biden today announced sweeping new measures to restrict asylum seekers at the U.S.-Mexico border. It's his administration's most aggressive move yet to curb illegal crossings.
Today, I'm announcing actions to bar migrants who cross our southern border unlawfully from receiving asylum.
Migrants caught illegally crossing the border could be denied the chance at asylum and quickly deported or turned back to Mexico. The order will go into effect at midnight. It will be activated when the number of border encounters between ports of entry hit 2,500 per day and paused when it falls below 1,500. Right now, asylum seekers are allowed to stay in the U.S. until their case is processed, which can, in some cases, take years. Unaccompanied minors and people who face serious medical or safety threats will be exempt. As more meat alternatives hit grocery store shelves, one BC company is diving into plant-based waters and serving up seafood from the garden. Stick around. It's not uncommon to see vegetarian burgers and other meat alternatives on grocery store shelves. One company on Vancouver Island, though, is casting its net into plant-based businesses and serving up seafood made from veggies. Take a look.
Hi, my name is Aki Kaltenbach, and I'm the founder of Save the Sea. We're a plant-based seafood manufacturer based here in Victoria. We make plant-based seafood products that are available in grocery stores across Canada. You know, our oceans face significant peril due to overfishing and climate change, and so our mission is to inspire more folks to eat more plants to help relieve pressure on our oceans. I came up with the idea for Save the Sea when I was running my family's Japanese restaurants. I had become vegan, and I was looking for seafood alternatives, and to my surprise, I couldn't find any. And so I developed my own recipes. Our smoked salmon product is made from a base of carrots. It is a true labor of love. It's a 2-day process. So we slice the carrots to have the same thickness as a smoked salmon. We then cook it to get the appropriate texture, and then we then marinate it overnight in maple syrup, apple cider vinegar, bull kelp, flax oil to give it those omega-3s. We recently received an investment from BDC Thrive Lab Fund. This is a brand new fund focused on female entrepreneurs that are focused on impact businesses. And so we received a $400,000 investment from there. It's their first investment. We want to enter the U.S. market, expand across the Pacific Northwest, work our way down to California, and then eventually across the rest of the U.S.
He's back. Darius Madavi joins us with our BC wet weather forecast. Before we do that, would you try it?
Yeah, of course I would try it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Try it. Okay. Yeah, so would I. I would be intrigued.
Yeah, I mean it's just carrots. Like it's not like bugs, Dan. You know.
You ever eaten those?
I have with
Oh,
you,
is that
as you
right?
well know.
Oh, yeah, that's
I
right.
would have
I
rather
do
been
recall
eating
that.
that, to be honest. So yeah, maybe I'll give it a try.
If we combine them too, oh boy, we get it made in the
Let's
shade.
not. Let's keep them separate.
Okay, fine. Do we get sunshine soon?
Yes, lots of sunshine, Dan. And speaking of Victoria, from that piece, I should mention very strong winds for the South Island earlier today, as well as here on some parts of Metro Vancouver. Those winds are starting to calm down now and will continue to into tomorrow. And then we enter quite a calm period. If you do find yourself on the north coast, again, you will see a little bit more of those winds but over the next couple days. But generally, a lot more calm than usual, and a lot more calm than usual across the entire province. Ridge of high pressure building in, going to sweep the entire area, so don't expect to see too much activity at all over the next few days, especially in terms of that precipitation. A little bit more lingering for parts of the North Island, central and northern coast. West Coast Island, maybe seeing some showers tomorrow as well, but generally that's going to continue moving up, so not too much more precipitation on the way for most places. Maybe a little bit breaking into some places. I know Fort Nelson has a slight possibility tomorrow of seeing a few showers, but not too much activity. And then again, risk of thunderstorms in some places in the central interior as well. But generally pretty calm, which means that we may see some change to this fire danger map. I know that even here in the Northeast has improved since just yesterday. First time we've seen that be low fire danger in quite a while. I'd expect to see some of this start to come back up in the days ahead. We got some pretty consistent rainfall, so that should help for a few days. But as we continue to see sunshine into the weekend, it's quite a long dry period to have. So especially with the prevailing drought conditions, expect to see that start to come up as we continue to see the temperatures come up as well, because we're going to get quite a lot warmer over the next few days. By the weekend, hitting 30 in the Okanagan, mid-20s easily for here in Metro Vancouver by Saturday. Temperatures may be coming down a little bit on Sunday, but still looking sunny. Slightest chance of a shower overnight Saturday into Sunday, but generally very calm. As I said, slight risk of thunderstorms, some parts of the central interior, a little bit of rain still on the coast, but generally those sunny skies really are taking over across the board. And if we do take a look here in Metro Vancouver, it's a very easy forecast, Dan. Don't have to spend too much time on it.
Look at all those
lots of
graphics
sunny
you had to put
skies.
in.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I love a
Thanks.
week like this.
Thanks, Darius.
Thank you.
Well, it's not for several months, but the biggest one-time sports event to hit BC this year is already spooling up. The Grey Cup will be played in November at BC Place, and tickets are now on sale. Earlier this week, we spoke with the CFL commissioner alongside that iconic trophy. We talked about the Grey Cup halftime show, where a new team may emerge in the league, and a new football honor for him. It will be a busy fall when the Grey Cup, will be fought for in this stadium, BC Place, November 17th, 2024. And we're here with CFL Commissioner Randy Ambrosie. Thanks for being here, Randy.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you.
First of all, congratulations on the Gridiron induction. It's quite an honor.
Yeah, very excited. And my wife and I are going to Chicago on Friday for the gala dinner and the induction. It'll be special, and I'm grateful to have been chosen.
Before we get to football, let's talk about music. Halftime show announcement. Tell us who's going to be playing here in BC Place for the Great Cup.
Well, we announced first thing this morning that it's going to be the Jonas Brothers. Mark Doman's got a better playlist than I do because, he was such a driving force in selecting them, and because he wanted an act that would speak to the generations. And, I know my daughters, by any indication, my daughters have been texting me this morning since the announcement, all wanting to make sure they're here and listening to the Jonas Brothers. So it's going to be a great show. And, they've sold 20 million albums worldwide. So, their music is phenomenal. We're really excited to have them.
Speaking of that generational appeal, we've seen that with Amber Doman bringing in LL Cool J. He's got 50 Cent for some of the first games for the Lions. What does that speak to about what the Lions are doing well in terms of keeping fans and attracting new ones?
Yeah, it was from the moment we met Amar Doman, he had a vision to really make this, first he wants the Lions to belong to all, to the entire province. So, He's been great about thinking about this as a provincial operation, not a city operation. He wants to welcome the new generations in, so he's a big thinker. And when you attend a game here, one of the things you'll see is the crowd is we cover all demographics. And one of the things that's really exciting is you'll see they do a great job of game day engagement, and you'll see a little girl with her mom or with her dad. And they'll put them on the Jumbotron, and they're singing a song, and they're having the time of their life. And you just think that's exactly what it takes, because that imprints a very strong feeling about what it means to be part of the CFL, what it means to be a Lions fan. Amar has done an amazing job of that.
How is that translating to the rest of the league? Because there has been some concern about attracting new fans, as there is a certain demographic of CFL fan who are older.
It's a great question, but last year was the turning point, because last year our TV ratings were up 9% overall. In the 25 to 54 category, they were up 34% nationally. Huge growth in our three major markets, Vancouver, Toronto, and Montreal. Our digital platforms grew double-digit, in some cases triple-digit growth. So we really the governors have made a big investment in reaching out to Canada. And it's one of the things that makes the Grey Cup so special, because it is truly a national celebration. It's a place, I have a son-in-law who's British. He said you couldn't do this in England. The fans would fight each other, but you come to Grey Cup, Canadians from all walks of life come. Some have been coming for 30 plus years. Some will come for their very first time, and they all end up feeling welcome. Community is at the heart of what makes the league so strong. And now we've got this flywheel turning. There's a sense of engagement and growth. Best ownership we've ever had. Literally, they've got best ownership from Amar Doman here. You look across the country with now Pierre-Karl Palado in Montreal, and all points in between. It's just the league has really turned the corner, and it's a league for all Canadians to enjoy.
Speaking of growth, I want to switch to your favorite topic, expansion. You've been asked about this a number of times, and you were talking about it in a CFL podcast in January, around that you think that there's an opportunity there. Atlantic Canada's been talked about for a long time, possibly Quebec City. Where do those stand?
Yeah, so, governors have asked me to make this a priority, but we're just going to take a very methodical approach. Going to have a lot of quiet conversations, get a feel for where the various groups are, where the various cities are, what they're thinking. Look, in my view, we're going to get there. I think it's going to take time. It's going to take a little bit of patience. But I think we're going to see the CFL expand to 10 before too long. But it's going to take, some energy and effort, and it's going to take the commitment of owners like Amar Doman and all the owners around the league to really lean in and make it happen. But I have a great confidence in them, and we're confident that eventually we'll see that 10th team for the CFL.
Do you expect to see that either in Quebec City, or are you hoping for Atlantic Canada?
Really, I think at this point you want to be where they want us to be. And when a market invites us in, it's not materially different than what we've seen here. Amar has brought such a level of energy and passion and excitement to the BC Lions. And you saw last year, the crowds grew, the excitement grew. Why? Because there's an investment in the community. I think we will ultimately want to go where there's an investment in the community. They've got the welcome mat out for the Canadian Football League, and then we'll go there and we'll make it a great success.
Lastly, and I appreciate your time, there is more attraction, more sports coming online for fans than we've perhaps seen in a long time, particularly for Women's Hockey League. We've got the National Soccer League that's coming online. The Whitecaps are trying to get into the playoffs. The Canucks had a good run. What is it that the Lions, and particularly the CFL, need to keep doing to have fans invest in these games?
Well, again, kind of go back to at the core, we say there's two things: reason to watch and reason to care. Reason to watch, the game is fun, fast, and entertaining. Reason to care is our connection to the community. And I think, frankly, we do both fun, fast, and entertaining and community better than anyone. But it's also about getting kids involved in the sport. And of course, now with the growth of flag football, boys and girls are playing flag football. They're getting that imprint of that strong connection to the game. One of the things I love about football is you can't play it by yourself. You can't throw a football and bounce it off the wall and catch it yourself. You have to play with others. It creates a great atmosphere for belonging. We talk a lot about diversity and inclusion. This has been a league with a very long history of welcoming people in that couldn't otherwise get to play somewhere else. And that makes us special. It's one of the things that makes Canada so special. And I think ultimately it's how we win these communities, by making everyone feel welcome. Come on in, there's lots of room in the CFL tent for everyone. And that's, I think, in the long run, how we end up taking our league to the next level.
Randy Ambrosi, thanks for your time.
It's great to be here. Thanks for your time today.
Still to come, a Quebec teacher has come up with a game plan to get students off their phones in the classroom. You'll want to see this.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
With the changes to how Canada is able to access journalism online and on social media, we want to assure you that when you're looking for CBC News, you'll always be able to find us. Local news, breaking stories, and the latest from around the world is at your fingertips any time of the day with the free CBC News app and online at cbcnews.ca. For news you can trust, download the CBC News app and stay connected wherever you are.
A teacher in Quebec City was concerned about his students' lack of in-person social connection. So he found a solution.
His personal collection of retro arcade and video games. Our Emily Warren went to check it out.
I have some of the classic Atari games. This one's from the movie Alien. A GameCube.
Apologies, we're having some technical issues with that story. But if you notice in there, Super Mario Brothers on Super Nintendo, you had Donkey Kong, what was the other one? Duck Hunt, like, this is some good stuff.
Yeah, I think we should do that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Finally.
Bring in your original Pong game, whatever the first video game was. Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch this newscast on CBC Gem, our free app, as well as on YouTube and our website, cbc.ca/BC.
Tanya Fletcher will have your next local news at 11 o'clock right after the National, so please join her then. Good night.